Clemson, the preview. Guys, welcome into the I-80 Boys College Football Podcast. We're excited here. I'm Christian, and that guy over there is
the one and only Chris Vaca.
The one and only. And speaking about the one and only, Chris, let's talk about the one and only Dabo Swinney and the Clemson Tigers here for a second.
All right, let's go.
Chris, Clemson's coming off a very up and down 9-3 season, right? Most programs in college football would kill to have a 9-3 season. Not Clemson and not their fan base, though, right? Or Tyler from Spartanburg or wherever the hell he was from. Look, Dabo and the Tigers, they're looking for a bounce back year, okay, this year. The good news is they get back the big three, an offensive coordinator, Garrett Riley, Cade Klubnik, and Phil Maffa. Look, I look for Cade Klubnik to have a breakout year, okay, in year two of Riley's system, right? He put up over 3,000 total yards last year and 23 touchdowns. I mean, the kid can kind of do a little bit of both. He can run, he can throw. I think he's going to have an even better year this year. Look for Phil Maffa to build on a breakout season he had last year, putting up over 1,000 yards and 13 touchdowns. Okay, guy is a stud and a workhorse back there. The O-line should be pretty good as well, right? They get back most of their starters, right? Clemson is kind of in that upper echelon of college football, as we like to talk about, that rotates guys in and out. So even if they lose someone to the NFL, there's somebody else that probably has gotten a lot of snaps that is coming in to replace them. You know, the biggest question mark for Clemson for the last few years, Chris, has really been the wide receiver room, right? They didn't have a single receiver last year with over 600 yards, okay?
Wow.
But they have experience, and I think with what Clemson and Riley want to do, they're going to keep spreading the ball around a little bit, right? So somebody this year is bound to have a breakout year. I can feel it. They're due for it, as we talk about all the time. Here's the nuts and bolts of it. Clemson finished last year ranked 50th in total offense. All right, I see them moving into the top 25 this year in terms of total offense. Okay, Chris, I'm going to kick it over to you. Tell me a little bit about their defense.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. We know the defense last year was pretty damn good. It's been pretty good under Dabo his entire time at Clemson. They gave up 21 points per game last year. That was 31st in the country. They also forced 30 sacks, which was pretty damn good. And the big thing I love here, they had 14 interceptions. That defense creates turnovers. That's obviously huge. So here's your problem, though, Christian. They lost 8 starters on that D. That's a lot. That's a lot of people. Jeremiah Trotter, Xavier Thomas, Tyler Davis, Nate Wiggins, just to name a few. Some of these guys were all conference first-team players. So now it's guys for like Wade Woodaz to, fill in for Trotter at the linebacker position. The good thing is they also get back Barrett Carter, though, the other linebacker right next to him. He's a damn good player. I do have a couple questions about the secondary this year. They lost 3 out of 4 starters there. Just considering the fact they had 14 interceptions last year, that was like top 10 in the country. So this defense is going to be interesting. I personally think they're going to probably take a little bit of a step back this season. It's hard to kind of replicate what they've done, the past couple of years, especially when you lose that kind of production. So, Christian, I want to bring up the predictions. Here's the thing, guys. I had a hard time trying to predict Clemson this year because, let's be honest, Christian, you know this. Dabo Swinney is one of the very few coaches walking around with a national title, right? I mean, in today's college football, he's actually got 2 of them. They've been, I wouldn't call it a downward slope the last couple of years, but it's been a little rough. There's been a lot of media circus around it. Some of the fans pissed off, as you mentioned earlier. I want to say Clemson gets it turned around this season. I have them going 10-2, and anybody that follows the channel probably knows that I'm pretty high on Georgia this season, and that game I think is played in Atlanta, so that's a neutral site game. I have Clemson getting beaten that one by the Bulldogs, but we got App State, and I think App State will be a pretty good team. We know what App State can do. They knock off, Power 5 schools. That's kind of what they're known for. I think that'll be a pretty good game, but I definitely give the edge to Clemson. They're the better team. Now, the NC State game, this one's interesting to me, Christian. NC State's in almost every top 25 preseason poll. They return a lot of people, and we're going to talk about them on this channel. But I'm going to give the edge to Clemson in this one, too. And I know last year I think NC State won that game. Now, we know what Stanford is. They're going to be terrible this season. There's the big one, right? Florida State. That was a hell of a game last year if anybody watched it. I know it's at FSU, but I'm leaning Clemson. Then we got Wake Forest, Virginia. You got the big one against Louisville. We have talked about them on this channel. I have Clemson winning that one as well. So I only have one loss right now, Christian. And then there's Virginia Tech. And I think they trip up there. Just coming off that back-to-back, playing Louisville, got to go to VT. I think that's going to be tough for Clemson. Then you finish the year off with Pitt, Citadel, and South Carolina. So 10-2, Christian, I want to hear your thoughts on the Clemson Tigers and what you got them predicted at.
You said 10-2, Chris. I have to agree with you. I also have them going 10-2 as well. Okay. I think first game of the year against Georgia, neutral site field. I mean, that's, again, that is no easy task. We know Georgia is just as loaded, if not more so than ever now than they've ever been. Here's the thing. Georgia's also fired up. They're pissed off. They are not happy with how last year ended for them, losing to Alabama and then having to take on Florida State. We know how that turned out. Georgia is going to be fired up. They're going to be ready to go week one. And I'm sorry. It's luck of the draw, right? You can thank the scheduling gods from, 10, 15 years ago, whenever this game was scheduled for this. So, and then like you said, Chris, App State's not an easy task either, but I think they'll get through the App State, NC State, Stanford slate pretty unscathed. And then they travel to play at Florida State. Now, a lot of people are going to say, hey, this Florida State team is going to be, significantly worse, or they're going to be a rebuilding or whatever have you than they were last year. I think they're going to be just as good as they were last year. I think the DJ, Ungalele kid, right, who played at Clemson, I think there's a revenge factor there because he knows, hey, he kind of ran out of Clemson and he wants to prove himself. I think this game against Florida State is going to be no easy task for Clemson this year, and I got them losing against Florida State as well. Again, there could be a surprise loss the rest of the way. I think Clemson, if they lose to Georgia and Florida State, kind of like they did last year, they're going to kind of use that to kind of pull themselves together, get out of being shell-shocked, and move right on to doing what they need to do. Chris, with that being said, what's your best and worst case for Clemson?
I think for me, best case, maybe they go something like 11-1. To run the table in any conference is almost unheard of. It doesn't happen very often. We know Florida State did it last year, but I think something like an 11-1. Worst case, I think if the wheels fall off, you're looking at something like another 8-4 type of season. I know they won. I think they went 9-4 last year, but with losses to maybe Louisville. You said Florida State, Virginia Tech is on that list. NC State is a team people are really talking about. Like I said, I'm not going to come on here and say that, NC State Clemson can't make a bowl game or something like that. I think they're going to win some games, but a lot of that depends on how well that offense plays. Christian, what about your thoughts on this?
No, I completely agree. I think the floor for a team like Clemson's 8 or 9 wins, again, that is the floor, I think, for them. And, let's be honest, right? This is not an easy schedule by any stretch of the imagination. South Carolina, even though, you get to play South Carolina to end the year off at home. South Carolina has up and down years all the time. We see it. When you least expect South Carolina, that's when they strike. Again, they got to play at Florida State. You have to play Appalachian State, a team that's played spoiler to many teams over the years, right? Ask Michigan, ask Texas A&M, right? They'll tell you all about it. They almost knocked off North Carolina, but not that, North Carolina has really done much over the last few years, but they can play with the best of them. Then you got to start the year off playing Georgia. So not to go all the way through their schedule again, and not even to mention Louisville, and then Virginia Tech gets a lot of people back as well. Chris, I think the best case scenario for them is 11-1. Even if they get out of the first weeks, they manage to beat Georgia. It's still a gauntlet of a schedule. I think there's still a way that they slip up. Again, could it be something as crazy as they beat Georgia and then travel on the road and lose to Appalachian State? I doubt it, but crazier things have happened, right?